You are now tuned in to the newest Bills Mafia production, Fambase Sports. Join Jarek Hall and Kari Demos as they take you around the world of sports, every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on the official network of the original Bills Mafia.
What is going on, sports world? We are back here again. Welcome back to Buffalo Fambase Sports with, of course, me, Jarek Hall, with my co-host, Kari Damos. We got a lot to talk to you, with you guys about. First of all, we got NBA Finals recaps, Game in 4. We got, 4 and 5. We definitely got to talk about these games because they were some high-action, high-impact games. And now we're going to go Game 6 to Boston. So we're going to talk about that with our preview and prediction of that. Also, NFL Minicamp Chatter. Of course, Minicamp is here. Training camp is literally around the corner along with the preseason. So we're going to talk about some Minicamp Chatter, talk about some players that are holding out, players that are already there. So, yeah, we'll get into that. But the first thing we want to talk about, guys, is Saban and Texas A&M because the drama, the saga continues, right? The drama continues with Saban and A&M. One of the most interesting stories I think I've ever seen. Ever since, for me, watching college football. I've been watching college football for over 16 years. I have not seen anything like this. So, of course, we all know Saban, NIL. We actually did cover that with Saban and NIL in the Jimbo Fisher comments, along with Jackson State and Deion Sanders. And we all know that kind of escalated kind of to the wrong way. Saban did admit he did apologize to the situation, but Jimbo Fisher, for the most part, took it to heart, said it, pretty much called him out. We've never seen anyone. Maybe Paul Feinbaum's the only person that's ever done it, at least from the media perspective. We've never seen any coach do it. But Jimbo Fisher pretty much called him out, pretty much called him every word in the book. Saban did apologize, including to Deion Sanders, which, Deion Sanders, for the most part, has forgiven his apology. Jimbo Fisher said he's done with the situation, but according to the athletic administration, they are not done because they went up to Sankey, Commissioner Sankey of the SEC, and they says, listen, we want Saban punished. We want him fined, and we want him suspended according to the NIL violations. He did violate it. He did violate these sanctions with slander, which is according to some of the laws, it is illegal. So we demand that he is fined and he is suspended. So Sankey will address that during SEC Media Days, which we are about a month away. If you guys are pretty interested in that, check that out on ESPN. It is going to be absolute bonkers. Me and Kyra, we talked about this backstage, but I'm telling you right, guys, Alabama, normally they schedule when teams go up when it comes to the media days. Guarantee you Alabama A&M are going to go back-to-back. You have to, especially when you want to promote the game. And by the way, guys, I try to look for tickets. It's already sold. Like Alabama A&M tickets are already sold. The prices are absolutely sky-high, ridiculous. So the hype is absolutely real. But before we get into that, shout out to Brock coming from the Jan Sports YouTube channel. Thank you guys. By the way, if you guys are coming from the Jan Sports YouTube channel, thank you guys so much for coming to us. Oh, and I think Kari left a little bit there. I think he'll come back in a little bit. But thank you guys so much for coming to us. We really, really do appreciate it. And, let's hop straight into this thing. So we'll wait for Kyrie to get back. But until then, I'll probably just go first a little bit. So according to CBS Sports, according to their website, I'm going to read you guys a little bit of a quote, what was said here. But the war words between Alabama coach and Nick Saban and Texas A&M coach Jimbo Fisher is in the rearview mirror. By the fallout continues, according to the records obtained by On3. Coach Saban's statement is false beneath the dignity of the SEC and corrosive to the fabric of sportsmanship in college football as a whole, and especially within the SEC. The email read, we expect the league to take strong public action against Coach Saban, and we also expect the league and the University of Alabama to demonstrate that such unprofessional and disrespect towards Texas A&M and their student athletes, coaches, and the university as a whole will not be tolerated. And a public apology from Nick Saban is also not enough. So that was definitely a quote from one of Texas A&M's athletic administrators, and it's been absolutely wild for them to of course, for everything else to be going on so far. So, Kari, I want to get your thoughts about it since you're back with us. This is crazy, man. What are your thoughts with Nick Saban Texas A&M and just college football as a whole regarding this matter?
Yeah, sorry about those technical difficulties there. We've had it's been a challenge here with StreamYard, but my thoughts, man, it's really hard to dive into it because obviously we have all the respect in the world for Coach Saban. He's the greatest to ever do it collegiately, and again, respect to Jimbo Fisher. He's a national champion coach in his own right. So like, these are two heavy hitters, two of the top programs in the SEC, let alone in the country. But I do think I want to go down the line with it. I think first and foremost, I do think Coach Saban was out of line for what he was saying in terms of more so the grand overall scale. Specifically attacking Jackson State in the situation with Travis Hunter, I think was very out of pocket, especially just considering, again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. When you're the top defensive back in the country, obviously he was the top overall player, but specifically a defensive back, and you're going to play for the greatest defensive back to ever do it. I mean, I don't think money is really as big of a factor in that as in terms of the overall experience you're going to gain from that. It's like a resume, that has a top sports place like ESPN or like Fox Sports One, like those are places that wherever you go after you should be fine because those are high level organizations. So that's one. I do think that his comments were a little out of line in terms of what he said about A&M. Just the fact that maybe they did offer some more NIL money than others, and maybe that's a part of the reason why those kids were able to get to those schools. But let's not act like I think it's two-sided with it. First of all, let's not act like each and every kid that came to A&M is going to A&M because they were offered NIL money. Like those kids, yes, they were offered NIL money, but like that's any kid that's SEC level recruit or Power 5 level recruit. A lot of these kids are getting to schools now, and NIL is a part of it. That's just the way the ecosystem is built now in college football, college sports in general. So be it. That's how it should be. These kids have been grinding for years and years. I can attest to it myself, having played a year at Division I. So that's one side of it. But then also too, like Coach Saban, like you literally said, you started your press conference saying like, hey, like, this guy was making this on NIL. We had these players who earned this amount of money on NIL deals last year, before the season even started in 2021. Obviously, he went on to become the Heisman Trophy winner, but Bryce Young getting a, 7-figure NIL deal before he ever took a snap as the starting quarterback for the Crimson Tide. So I just thought what Coach Saban said was a little contradictory and a little hypocritical because he it's not like Alabama's not benefiting from NIL deals. That's one aspect of it. But the last point of it, where we're at today, where as you said, the saga continues with just addressing the fact that A&M really, really has pushed for Saban to be suspended. I mean, I think if anything, maybe a light fine, maybe a warning. But I really don't see anything else warranting, a suspension, because yes, what he said was out of line, but when you look at the data of it, it's not like what he said was necessarily incorrect. There were some guys that got to A&M on some NIL deals. Maybe it wasn't the entire 2022 recruiting class, but, there was a strong contingent of those players were able to go to, and become Aggies because, they were offered some NIL money, which is again, a beautiful thing. I think what's being missed in this is the fact that Saban is coming down on NIL deals and, assuming that other programs aren't using NIL deals in a professional manner, I'll say. But it's also like, Coach, you not only are you using it, you're using it at a program that, let's be honest, you guys didn't necessarily need to offer NIL deals. Alabama is Alabama. Alabama football will stand the test of time. It stood the test of time before Saban. Obviously, he's improved it and gotten it back to the heights it used to be at. Now that he's there, but I'm sure, Alabama football will be played 100 years from now, when all of us, are in the great beyond. So, I just think that he was a little too hypocritical of Jimbo Fisher and other programs. But to say that a fine or a suspension are really warranted, I don't know. I really just don't. I think the thing too is like NILs are so new. I mean, they literally aren't even a year old because July 1st is when they were enacted in 2021. So I think them being such a new concept, this time, is going to be interesting and weird because you're going to have people, making comments, saying, hey, I don't necessarily love NILs, or hey, I don't like the fact that, some players are, just looking for the best NIL deal and running. And yeah, maybe that's a byproduct of the way that the rules are set up now. But I just don't think, I think, the fact that he shared the statement that he did, really speaks volumes to just how, NILs are such a new thing. And I think people really are getting adjusted to them. So, it's something that's going to be an arms race. And again, I don't feel bad for Alabama because you're Alabama. Like, you lost out to you lost out recruits to A&M. Great. I mean, that's unfortunate, obviously, but let's not act like you being Alabama, the prowess that you have as a program, the prowess you have as Nick Saban isn't what's also bringing kids in too. NIL deals have maybe enhanced that a little bit. They've kind of coincided with it, but I don't want Coach Saban's statement to be the blanket thing for NILs because it really shines a bad light on NILs when, again, the NIL deals in terms of player empowerment is probably the most progressive thing I've seen in sports, professionally, but even in my lifetime, so just what are your thoughts there as well, Jarek?
Yeah, I think Brock said it with this comment is that, for me, because I'm a Bama fan, I think a lot of Alabama fans in particular feel that Nick Saban and pretty much, some of the outliers, kind of believe that, Nick Saban wasn't really talking about, just his hatred for NIL, but kind of just talking about that NIL is a little bit out of control, that we're not really using it properly because it is raw. Like it's entirely new, and it's something that's gonna continue to, in a way, get out of control until eventually there is some type of regulation. And I do feel like there is going to be a regulation sooner or later, because obviously you don't want a Quinn Ewers situation. I think Quinn Ewers is, even though he was kind of in a way the poster child of NIL because he was the first major recruit to get that sort of deal coming straight out of high school. He was the first person to get that mega deal, that $2 million deal he had with Ohio State. And he didn't even take a snap, and then he transferred to Texas, and he still get to keep all that money. So I feel like there's going to be some regulations because of that. You might as well just dub that the Quinn Ewers rule. But I do understand what Nick Saban was trying to say just a little bit, as far as, again, just NIL is a little bit out of control. It is entirely brand new, and he did talk about how players had to earn their way to try to get their NIL deals instead of just, literally coming out of high school. And before they even take a step on their campus, they're already getting paid millions of dollars, where you have all these other players that have been there for like around 3, 4, 5, sometimes even 6 years. And these guys are getting little to barely any money at all from NIL type of contracts. Mm-hmm. I did take a look at a certain article, and it was called NIL Evaluations. And what they did was that they evaluated certain prospects from high school that if they were to step into college right now, what is their total NIL worth? And I looked at Bronny James. He's worth $11.6 million. Mikey Williams is worth over $4 million. Archie Manning, who's not that, and again, it's not based off of their play in high school. It's literally just based off their popularity, social media contacts, mm-hmm. and also the NIL endorsements that are literally lining up for these kids as soon as they step into college. Mm-hmm. Only Bronny James is the only person that got major money. And it basically came from Twitch. It came from like Twitch Gaming, FaZe Gaming, which is like one of the top, gaming. I don't want to say corporation, but they're one of the top gaming clans of probably of all time, one of the richest ones. And they gave him millions of dollars just by literally joining with the clan. He's not even played with them. Joined the clan, got paid millions. So you look at Archie Manning, not that popular, but as a 5-star recruit, and he has the Manning name. 3.2 million is his estimated net worth.
Yeah.
So a lot of these kids coming out of high school are going to get lots of major deals. Like, it wasn't just Quinn Ewers. A lot of these kids are going to get major deals as soon as they step in onto campus. So in a way, was Nick Saban a little bit right as far as, is it getting a little bit out of control? I would say a little bit, but at the same time, like you said, Bryce Young got paid. He got paid. He pretty much got a $2 million NIL deal before he even earned his way to be the starting quarterback.
Right.
Like, he didn't earn his way based off of Heisman play. If he won the Heisman Trophy, like he did last season, and he had all these different type of accolades, these accomplishments, and then get paid millions of dollars in NIL deals. I mean, he already is after that season, but still,
right.
Before all that, then we can say, okay, Nick Saban, I can see where you're kind of going with this, that you have to earn your way up to get these type of contracts. But that's not the case. Bryce Young got paid millions before he even took a snap as a starting quarterback. So it is a little contradictory on Nick Saban's part of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about this before with A&M. If I was Jimbo Fisher, I would say, who cares? If we paid him or not, who cares? Because at the end of the day, this is all legal.
Yeah.
This stuff has been going on for decades, and it wasn't just with the A&M program. It's been happening with a lot of the other top programs for decades. Most notably with Oklahoma, with the whole situation, what they did back in the 80s, where they literally paid millions. The 2000s with the Miami Hurricanes, when they paid players millions of dollars. This has been happening for decades now.
Right.
So now that it's legal, it is a little bit out of control, but at the same time, players, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you are, your estimated net worth, if you believe that's what you're going to get, it is what it is. Players are coaches, boosters, they're going to want to pay for your talent. And it's kind of like, why would you not take advantage of the use of certain NIL contracts, certain NIL deals, so that you can, because a lot of this is life-changing money where they can get their families out of poor situations, and all of a sudden they can turn their families upside down, be that provider for their family, instead of waiting 4 to 5 years into the NFL. And to be honest, I'd rather get these kids paid now than to wait until they're 21, 22 years of age when they're getting their NFL contract and they don't even know what to do with it. At least in college, you can get NIL money. Maybe you can have some sort of programs that can teach these kids how to manage their money, how to manage certain deals, net worths, how to set up agencies, get that situated, teach them that now so that they can be more prepared as soon as they get to the next level for the NFL. But as far as kind of addressing the whole situation with A&M's athletic directory, I think it is ridiculous that they want Nick Saban to be fired. I mean, I think it's way out of proportion when it comes to that situation. I feel like it's way over exaggerated as far as Nick Saban really coming hard on A&M when I don't think he was coming down on them that much. I think that this was more of a tactic. This was more of a tactic to get boosters to sit up there and say, listen, we need to be, we got to be a little bit more competitive because we are in a new age of recruiting. And Saban even admitted it before NIL was in the conversation. He predicted that NIL was going to be a major cause for recruitment. And he knew that as soon as, sooner or later, he's going to have to use that towards his advantage. Because one thing we know about Nick Saban, he adapts to every situation, and paying Bryce Young millions of dollars. And not just that, but a lot of the other Alabama players that are, that were walk-on players that simply got, a huge scholarship, that simply earned their way to scholarship because of their academic achievements. Those guys got NIL deals as well. No one ever talks about that, but they also had NIL contracts as well. So Nick Saban, he's been doing this. Again, it's a little contradictory, but I think it is a tactic for, to try to, in a way to try to, I guess, mess up the competition a little bit. Maybe get those boosters for Alabama to try to raise up the stakes, raise up the level. But I do think that overall wise, it was just way out of proportion for A&M to try to go to Sankey and demand a suspension, demand a fine. That's not even happening. Sankey won't do that, especially because I think Saban is let's be honest, he is the poster child for college football. Sankey will not touch Nick Saban unless Nick Saban does something extremely egregious. And I don't think that this was as egregious as everyone is kind of making it out to be. So that's kind of just my thoughts about that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I don't think it. I agree. I don't think it's as egregious as it's been made to be. I think you made a lot of very fair points. First and foremost, I think just considering the fact that NIL, like, again, I've talked about this before. The reason why I truly believe NIL is so important is because of, kids like, I think, for example, a kid like Reggie Bush, like, obviously all the talent in the world, and, was able to go on and be a Super Bowl champion, Pro Bowl player at times throughout his career in the NFL. The fact that he had his Heisman taken away, still hasn't had it given back either.
Mm-hmm.
For the fact that he took money to be able to house his family, not even necessarily himself. I know he did end up, having a little apartment space himself, but he was able to take care of his family, which is right in Southern California as well. He's from the San Diego 619 area. So, like, the fact that a kid like him was able to get money, at the time it was illegal, okay, but like, if this was 2022 and Reggie Bush was playing for USC and he was doing the things that he was doing back in 04, 05, like he was, and he was, again, one of the faces of college football, like he was, he'd be able to earn that money and then some, like you said, like being able to have the opportunity to get his hands on money now, when, first of all, he's not able to work outside of football. Like, again, I hated that was probably one of the things I disliked the most about Saban's comments, was that, players have always been able to work. Okay, you say that when in a Division I football player or Division I athlete in general's schedule, in season, even in the off season, more, I could say more so in the off season it's more likely, but even more obviously in season is, the priority. When would they be able to fit a working, part-time job? Because there's no way they're working a full-time job with school, with lifts, with practice, with meetings, with training table, with academic support sessions, with tutoring sessions. Like, there's just no way. So that was something I didn't like. But you mentioned it a little bit, talking about those programs that kind of teach those kids. I think, yes, NIL is a little out of control. NIL is a little wild because it is so young and new, and it's something that everybody's really just trying to grasp still. So it is a little bit like the Wild Wild West. But I don't think it's so far from what the concept of what it was created for. I don't think it's that far away from it. But I do think something that can enhance that is, like you said, those programs, being able to tell these kids, hey, here's how you balance your finances. Here's how you build your credit. If you're looking to get a house, here's some things you need to do, paying your car note, things like that. I think those are things that NIL can eventually graduate to. And if they haven't already, they can just kind of expand on them and grow them from where they're at today. I really, truly believe, though, at the end of the day, this is really just fodder. We're all just chatting about it, and I think that's the important thing, the fact that these issues are being discussed. But I'm much happier knowing that we live in a world today in 2022 where, a college athlete, and again, why I'm a big proponent of NIL deals. Yes, you got your Bryce Youngs, you've got your Bijan Robinsons, you've got your Johnny Davises in basketball, but you've also got that tennis player who plays for St. Bonaventure, or you've got that golfer who goes to Houston. You know what I mean? There are kids in those programs who might not get that notoriety as some of these money making generating sports, but they'll be able to earn NIL deals. They'll be able to make money in college that they might not be able to recruit outside of them being student athletes. The recognition that they have and the spotlight that they have as student athletes, for whatever respective institutions they go to, that's a big deal. And being able to cash in on that in the moment is a huge deal. So again, I personally don't think, the issues that we're facing today with NILs are as big of a deal as they are, or as a big of a deal as some on the outside may making them seem. But again, like I said, and like you've mentioned, the top programs throughout history have done this. They've paid players, whether it was illegal or not, they paid them. But now that it's legal, I don't want to hear about, oh, this school is doing this program's doing that, because at the end of the day, you're also taking advantage of it. Maybe they're taking advantage of it a little bit differently than you are, but let's not point fingers, because they always say when you point fingers, you got 4 pointing right back at you.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And, Brock kind of said in a previous comment, man, he's tired of the NIL deals and stuff like that. He just wants to see Alabama football. And listen, I don't blame you too, man. I can't wait to get into college, and we're going to get into college. We're definitely going to talk a lot more about college football, a lot more college football previews and stuff like that. Definitely more in the future. So, Brock, trust me, man, stick with us. Also, the Bills in the chat, thank you so much for stopping by. And just everyone in general, thank you guys so much for stopping by the chat. And if you're going to watch this live stream, by the way, guys, a little post after when once this gets uploaded. Yeah, man, we just want to appreciate you guys. And again, check us out live Tuesday, 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 o'clock if you're on the West Coast, 6 o'clock if you're on Central Time. And check us out. We talk about the latest sports topics, the latest sports trends. And also Buffalo, and also, we're not the only ones that do it. Subscribe to us at Fambase Sports. There are other content creators that we also have on the channel as well. A lot of other great content creators. I know yesterday, Mike, in Apex, those guys were kind of live streaming on Mafia Sports Report. Those guys do a phenomenal job. And by the way, guys, we got big plans. We got big plans as far as regarding that. There should be a trailer up, so definitely subscribe to Fambase Sports. Pretty soon, we're gonna have a huge project that all of us are included in. So I'm extremely excited. I don't know if I can go any further, Kyrie, man, but I'm extremely excited once that kind of gets announced. But we're gonna go to our next topic. We're gonna talk about some finals, because game 4 and game 5 were crazy games, and I'm not gonna lie to you. I almost swung my opinion about who was going to win this thing, but I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I have no idea how Golden State won game 4 and game 5. I have no clue. But talking about Golden State and Boston, Golden State won both game 4 and game 5, and now going into game 6, going to Boston, they have a chance to clinch the NBA Finals, which is again Stephen Curry fourth Finals, and he might not even get MVP. Like, this is where all of a sudden, there was kind of a meme about where some reason when role players, Stephen Curry, start to kind of get down a little bit, that's when they start to pick up their game, and all of a sudden, the Andre Iguodala's of the world starts to pick up and win their finals. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens when it comes to there. But Kyrie, man, give me your thoughts of game 4 and game 5, and kind of who you got for game 6 going into Boston.
For sure, yeah. It's so crazy you say that too, because I mean, if you look at the numbers right now, like if either team wins, whether it's the Warriors or the Celtics, like you can make a case that Steph Curry is the MVP of the series, regardless of who wins. I mean, the guy's averaging over 30. He's shooting for himself a down 39% from deep. But he just continues to just change the game, and I think it has been refreshing, because, like I've mentioned before, I'm a huge LeBron fan. So in that time when the Cavs and the, Warriors were playing almost every year in the finals, it was definitely tough, because as a LeBron fan, it was hard to, I was rooting against Steph a lot of those years. But it brings me back to, when those guys were really just getting going, and, when Mark Jackson was still there as the coach, and, when he was telling the league, like, listen, man, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, that's the greatest shooting backcourt of all time. He was saying this and people laughed about it. And now we say that people don't even bat an eye. Like, they would press you if you didn't say that those two were a part of the greatest shooting backcourt of all time. So it was great to be able to see Steph, have such a crowning jewel moment in game 4 with 43 points, 7 threes, just being able to carry the load. I know Jordan Poole has done some things. Andrew Wiggins, man, he, you talk about Steph not getting the Finals MVP award. It would only be because of Andrew Wiggins, because, I mean, the man, for all the slander he's caught, obviously coming in the league as the number 1 overall pick, that's a lot of expectation, and the type of hype he had coming out of Canada, arguably the greatest prospect Canada's ever had, basketball-wise. To think, all those down years in Minnesota, and, not necessarily making the playoffs each year, and, coming here or coming to Golden State, in the D'Angelo Russell trade, and really being not necessarily a throwaway, but looked at as, hey, he'll come here and he'll be a role player, because that's, what he was being asked to do. Essentially, you're not the number one option anymore, or the number two option at that, for that matter. But now he's really grown into that role. He's become such an elite defensive player. That's probably the one thing that has been most impressive to me, because he's always been a scorer. He's always, he could roll out of bed and give you 17, 18 a night. But for him to be as locked in as he's been this whole year on the defensive end, to see him rebounding as well as he is, to play as well as he did last night, the mid-range jumpers, getting to the dunk he had to cap the win, to really like seal it on, I believe it was on Derek White. I mean, man, the guy is just, he's a freak athlete, and you love to see players come into their own, live up to their potential, whatever, coming of age, whatever cliche you want to use. So it's been great to see. But, again, just talking about the series overall, I think one thing that stands out with Boston is that I really just think that, it's I don't want to say it's like how the 2012 Thunder were, in terms of like, oh man, this team is just too young. But I do see, like, I think that they're really just trying to figure themselves out, on this stage. Whereas Golden State, obviously, this is the third act of Golden State's dynasty. But it's really just, it's still very much feels like, the experience that they have. Obviously with Steph, Clay, and Dre, even with Draymond having his ups and downs, even with Clay, struggling shooting wise the first couple of games, and now with him catching fire, and even Steph in Game 5, Steph had such an off night. I mean, for him to end his consecutive game streak of made threes, and them to still win, for Jordan Poole to have the night he did, Looney still being a bully down low, protecting the rim and grabbing rebounds. I just feel like the Celtics, it's a tried and true formula in sports. Experience, you really can't measure experience. You really can't measure how, chemistry and connectivity as a group will take you, because obviously the Celtics are a very connected, group. A lot of those guys have been there 4 or 5 years now together, but that doesn't surpass 10 years of, hey, this is our 6th finals trip in the last 8 years. And, Steve Kerr, obviously him as a future Hall of Fame coach. And again, no offense to Ime Udoka, who's been tremendous this year in the playoffs, but he's a rookie coach too, rookie head coach too. So I just think this was kind of like, it's kind, again, I compared it last week to like how the Rams of 2018 were, where they got there, they were on the doorstep, young up and coming team, all these superstars, all this talent. I think they're a more talented team than Golden State, but they just didn't have that experience. They had never been in that championship environment and setting yet. And sometimes you got to take those lumps to be able to surpass and elevate yourself in life. So I think the series still goes 7. I picked the series to go 7 before the series. I still think that happens. I think Boston will play better at home in Game 6. Even though they've been up and down at home throughout the playoffs. I think this is going to be the last game at TD Garden this season. So I think the Boston fans will be juiced up. And Jason Tatum, he's had his struggles shooting wise. I just don't see him having another porous performance like that, shooting wise. At least he's been able to stay involved defensively and facilitating. But I think Jaylen Brown will be able to step up. Hopefully Robert Williams' knee will hold up. We'll see what Al Horford provides. He was able to get back to it and knocking down some shots last night. And also too, I'm interested to see how Derek White favors. He's been a good matchup against Curry at times, and he's been able to knock down some threes as well. So we'll see how the role players step up for Boston. But yeah, I do think Golden State gets it done in 7. They're just so deep. They check every box. So, what are your thoughts on the the finals and where they're at today?
Okay, so I'll answer this question, then I'll hop straight into the question over here. So Brock kind of asked me what I kind of thought about Arch Manning real quick. So I dive deep to this real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I think Arch Manning is a decent quarterback prospect. I mean, he's a 5-star for a reason. He has the Manning name. We talked about this a little bit earlier as far as his NIL evaluation. He's evaluated with, I think, around $3 to $4 million. Bama does have Eli Holstenbrock, but for the most part, you never want to stop recruiting that position, because if Eli decommits and if Archie Manning doesn't come to Alabama, and if Archie Manning comes to Bama, that's a huge win for Alabama if they can get a guy like that. So, he's the number one overall prospect for a reason. He's a really good quarterback prospect, but it's not the end of the world. If Alabama doesn't get him, it's not the end of the world, because they got Jalen Milroe. Ty Simpson's there. He's a former 5-star recruit. And obviously they got Eli and other quarterbacks. It's not just Arch. They're recruiting, 3 to 4 other quarterback prospects, to come and take official visits to come there. So kind of just my thoughts about that.
I feel like Arch is going to go to a school that he can kind of bring back, like
I think Texas.
Yeah, I could see it. I really, he the quarterback position specifically is so like, hey, like, I can uplift this group. I can uplift this unit. Hey, I can bring some other recruits with me now. Hey, so-and-so's transferring now because I'm here. Like, quarterback position is the one where I could see, hey, I don't really care about what school it is. I'm going to try to bring them back, like a Miami, something like that sort. So, yeah, I could also see that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think Texas. The thing is that Quinn Ewers is there, and if he lives up to expectations, and all of a sudden he becomes, he goes into it. I mean, it's a big possibility that Arch Manning can say, sit up here and say, you know what, Texas is just a good thing for me because I have a great relationship with Steve Sarkisian and that coaching staff that's already there. I think some other destinations, I think Tennessee, only because Peyton Manning playing that alma mater, and obviously Josh Heupel's done an amazing job working with Dan Hooker in Tennessee and really getting that offense straightened out. I think Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin, the roots with Eli Manning. And, obviously him and, Lane Kiffin have a great relationship as well.
His dad played there too.
Yeah, I just don't think it's the obvious Bama, Georgia, Clemson. I just don't think it's the obvious top power options. I think there's a little bit slight options I think not a lot of people are going to expect. But those are just kind of my thoughts about that. But quickly talking about going back down to the finals, I am just surprised that Golden State missed as many threes as they did last night, and Boston still found a way to lose the game. Golden State at one point was 3 for 23 from the 3-point range, and Boston, of course, they were not good for a 3-point range for the first and second. Matter of fact, I don't even think they made a 3 in the first half. It wasn't until the third quarter where they made around, they made around 70% of their threes. At some point at transition, these guys were 5 from 5 for 3. And I just thought, okay, this game's already over, because Golden State just couldn't hit a shot. Stephen Curry did not even make a 3 last night, and that ended his 545 game streak, which, again, he literally tried to desperately get a 3 towards the end of the game. Klay Thompson was decent, but he didn't really heat it up to the fourth. It was really just Andrew Wiggins and Draymond Green as the main guys to really lead the charge. And, that's kind of one of the things that you wanted to see, was that, Draymond Green hasn't really been an offensive contributor. But we all know he can do, he's not a scorer, but he can do a lot of things, a lot of really good things elsewhere. I mean, he's a great defender. He can distribute the ball properly. He's a great leader. He's extremely tough. And I think that last night you kind of showed exactly why Draymond Green was so valuable, because let's be honest, he's not the guy that's going to give you, 15, 20 points. He's a guy that's going to give you around 8 to 9 to maybe, 7, 6 points. And he's going to get you 8 rebounds or 9 rebounds. He's going to get you around 7, 8 assists. Like, his stats are not going to, it's not going to surprise, it's not going to shock you. It's not going to make you, it's not going to surprise you. It's not going to make you think that he's a top player in the NBA. But, you have to literally watch Draymond Green to kind of see, okay, this is where the hype is kind of coming from. And this is why he's been so valuable for so many years for Golden State. And you said it best, Wiggins really stepped up for them. Not the greatest 3-point shooter, never was and never will be. But he's more of a mid-range scorer. He's more of a slashing type of guy. And he's really improved his defense. I mean, as a wing defender, and kind of how in a way, they kind of used him as a 4. I know Otto Porter played at the 4, but Wiggins really was that guy to go against Derek Williams, to go against White, to go against the other Williams. Like, he really was that guy to really try to box out those big men, try to and go out there and do their best to try to get those valuable rebounds. Boston did not, Boston, even though they've been out rebounding Golden State every single game as far as the offensive rebound goes, it wasn't that much. Like, I definitely thought in game 4 where Boston literally just dominated the offensive boards and somehow, some way, Golden State found a way to win that game. Game 5, it wasn't that drastic in that measure. And that's because a big reason why was because Andrew Wiggins was just that valuable down there on the low. So he's been incredible. I mean, the last 2 to 3 games, I think that he's kind of been a little bit underrated until all of a sudden we got to this point where they really needed someone else to step up, because Stephen Curry has been carrying the Warriors all series long, especially in game 4, we had over 43 points, had his LeBron moment. But then you kind of saw, he was kind of tired a little bit. He couldn't really find that shot selection. He literally tried all over the place, couldn't really knock it down. He started to make some careless passes. He was pretty good defensively, but overall wise, he just did not look like the same Steph. And you really need other players to step up, and that was where Klay Thompson came to play. That's where Draymond Green had to step up his game. That's where you had players from the bench. Gary Payton was pretty good, was really good sound defensively. He kind of stepped up a little bit. Otto Porter defensively, they started him at the 4. He had to step up his game. This is where we were talking about earlier, where Golden State has other players that can step up for them if they need to. And, Boston, even though they're extremely athletic, they're lengthy, they're just not scorers. They have their moments, but they're just not scorers. Marcus Smart is not a really good 3-point shooter. White can make, Williams can make 3 points, not Derek Williams, but the other Williams, he can make a 3-point shot, but he's not an effective 3-point shooter. They're all not effective 3-point shooters. They're more guys that can dominate you on the low post. They're the guys that will get you second chance rebounds and buckets, and they'll just try to out-tire you. They'll try to out-tire you. They'll try to out-physical you in a way. And, that's just their game. They're a hard-nosed basketball team, where Golden State is a team that can stretch you out from the 1, the 2, the 3, from other positions. But overall wise, I don't know. I was shocked that game 4 and game 5, Golden State wasn't really that good shooting compared to what we saw in game 3. And, you fell right into Boston's trap. And somehow, some way, Boston lost in their own way. And it's all because of the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Third quarter is where Boston normally takes control. Last night wasn't really the case, because I thought that even though Boston made it pretty close and competitive, the fourth quarter is exactly where Golden State just somehow, some way, shifted the momentum. We look at game 1, the last 5 to 6 minutes, Boston took control. Not game 1, but I'm sorry, game 1, and then you look at some of the other games where Boston just took control of the series. It was the last 5 to 6 minutes of the fourth quarter where they normally just took control of it. All of a sudden, we got to this where Golden State, the last couple games, the last 5 to 6 minutes, they somehow, in some way, just took control. They changed the narrative a little bit there. And it wasn't, and again, whether if it was Steph Curry that had to step up and had to be the one-man show, or other players in need that had to step up and be what Stephen Curry was to them this entire series, it just goes to show you, man, that Golden State, the veteran leadership, the experience that they have there, the leadership that they have, it really means something, because I don't know if any other team in the NBA would survive kind of the beating that Golden State had to took, because Boston, man, they're just such a physical team, and how they've just been dominating Golden State on the board, and it's infuriating. It's like I'm watching the game last night, and I'm like, dude, man, Golden State just can't get these offensive rebounds. Like, Boston somehow, some way, just keeps getting offensive rebounds, and they keep getting these second chance points. Like any other team, I think would crumble under the pressure. I think that's a big reason why Brooklyn kind of lost their way. It's a big reason why Milwaukee, in a way, lost their way. Like, all these teams have just lost to the pressure that Boston's had, and Golden State, it's just the veteran leadership, everything that's there. They're not panicking. They lose a game, what happens? They turn around real quick. They keep their composure, and all of a sudden we're at this point. So, game 6 is going to be interesting. And you got Boston. You don't got Boston, but I think you have Golden State winning in game 7, I believe.
Yeah.
So you got Golden State winning in game 7. This is what I have Golden State winning in 6 games. But it's going to be very interesting to see what happens, because all of a sudden now we're going to have a more desperate Boston team in game 6 that's going to try to do whatever it takes for them to just to survive one more game in order for them to try to get that finals. So I don't think that Stephen Curry is going to go 0 for 9 again. I think that Golden State, I think they're going to give everything they have, because I think going to 7 games is extremely dangerous, especially because Golden State hasn't really been shooting well over the last couple games, and you really don't want to play into Boston's hands. They've survived it. They've won those back-to-back games, but you really don't want to try to, play into Boston's hands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. And I honestly, there's so many different things that come to mind about this series. Like I really think just as simple as it sounds, I think the fundamentals were really lost for Boston last night. 18 turnovers. They shot 21 for 31 from the free throw line too. I mean, you double Golden State in terms of free throw attempts, but you're only shooting at 67.
Yeah, that's not
percent.
good.
Not at all, not at all. And I think just looking the last two games, the way that the Warriors have closed out the fourth quarters of both of these last two games in Game 4 and Game 5, I think the road that the Celtics have taken is kind of catching up to them too. Obviously they were able to sweep Brooklyn in the opening round, but you get back-to-back games, back-to-back 7-game series. First against the defending champs, who obviously that's a those guys. Thankfully for Boston's sake, Chris Middleton was out, but I mean that's still a championship bunch with probably the best player in the world on their team, and still one of the deepest groups in the league. And then you go to the Miami series where you're facing a team so similar in yourself that's super physical, super defensive minded. Jimmy Butler just emerging again and showing himself again as one of the best two-way stars in this league. I think that the fatigue is really starting to catch up with Boston. Obviously Golden State had a much easier road, beating, I believe they beat Memphis in 5 or 6. And then obviously John Morant obviously got hurt in that series as well. And then even considering the Phoenix series, Devin Booker was dealing with injuries. Chris Paul had ups and downs injury wise. So the Golden State has had a much different path. I'm sorry, not Phoenix. I'm not Phoenix. I'm going back to Dallas. Yes, yeah. My apologies, Dallas. Whereas that the Dallas series was quick. Being able to beat Dallas in 5 games. Again that was something that gave the Warriors some rest. Allowed them to be able to let those older guys rest up a little bit. But yeah, I truly believe that you mentioned it, Draymond, for him to play even a slightly better role. He had 8 points, 6 down, I believe it was 6 assists and 7 or 8 boards as well. Just being able to contribute a little bit more. Yeah, 8 points, 8 boards, and 6 dimes. A steal.
Enough Wyndham Rewards points.
So yeah, like for him to be able to play as well as he did, I think was really important. But also too, I think also just noting that Klay Thompson was able to heat up, noting that the fact that all these guys coming off the Warriors bench, Steph Curry not hitting a 3 and still being able to win by 10. I mean, I just can't. I don't see Boston getting out of this series, whether it's 6 or 7. But one other thing I did want to note is the fact that you mentioned the desperation factor. I do think the desperation factor, being able to play at home when your back's against the wall, when you're in a closeout game, I do think that benefits Boston. So that's my only reasoning for why I believe they'll win Game 6 and go to Game 7, because there's nothing from the past 2 games that would indicate that they're ready to take Game 6 by storm necessarily. So.
Yeah, man. So like I said, man, for Game 6, man, it's gonna be interesting. Very interesting game. I mean, Boston, like I said, it's been a hostile environment. I hate Boston, by the way. I'm sorry. Patriots fans, Bruins fans. No disrespect to any Boston fans that are watching this, but I'm sorry, man. I cannot stand you guys. But take the bias away. I mean, Boston, for the most part, it's a great home field advantage. We saw in one of the earlier games where Boston played at home, they took that advantage, and you kind of saw the intimidation factor a little bit there. You kind of saw Golden State was getting a little frustrated. You saw the fans kind of they really took it personal. I mean, they were really coming at Golden State players left and right, making personal comments. Especially it was to a point where you had the Golden State owner come in, came out and said that listen, man, these Boston fans are extremely disrespectful and that they need to kind of be in check. So, I can just imagine Game 6 is going to be so. I mean, the intensity is going to be there. Boston fans, they're going to try to do whatever it takes to try to get inside these players' heads. And I think this is where you just see experience. I think experience comes into play, where I think Golden State knows that they're one game away before winning the finals, because the Larry O'Brien Trophy will be in Boston. And to see to see Golden State, and especially if Draymond Green raises that, to raise that trophy in Boston, that place would just go absolutely just in nuts. It would just be a riot if that was able to happen. So it's going to be exciting to see Game 6 for sure. And I think that game is on Thursday, I believe. Thursday.
I believe so. Yep.
Yeah. So I think Thursday. So Thursday, that's when the game will happen. It's going to be extremely exciting. Again, I have Golden State winning in 6, so that's kind of my prediction as far as that. Do you have Boston winning Game 6 that you have it in 7?
Yeah, I have Boston winning Game 6 just to extend it for Game 7, but I like I said, I don't see Boston getting out of this series with a win, or with 2 more wins. I just think Golden State, like, shout out to Brock. The Warriors are too deep, and they've got shooters all around. Their system is elite. They've got, obviously it's not this level of Boston's defense, but they still have a pretty damn good defense. So I think, the proof is in the pudding. You got to go with the experience. It's a dynastic run. They're just going to keep adding to the dynasty. So I think Golden State cements this thing, seals the deal, whether it's in 6 or 7. And, I think Steph Curry, punches his stamp as a top 10 player all time, with his first finals MVP. So it definitely will be interesting to see how the Celtics respond, because they really have taken some gut punches the last 2 games.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So now we get to go into our last topic, and that's NFL minicamp chatter. Of course, the biggest one is especially because we are Bills fans, by the way, is Jordan Poyer's. It's kind of, he's there, but he's not going to participate. That's according to a lot of the sports media outlets out there. There's a lot of minicamp chatter. Kyler Murray, for the most part, he's there now. He's participating in a lot of the minicamp stuff, but he still wants that extension. Cliff Kingsbury kind of talked about his kind of concerns. Lamar Jackson, there's a lot of drama with that situation. He's there, he's participating, but there's a lot of drama there. Pretty much a lot. Deebo Samuel, we can say the same thing. Terry McLaurin is a guy that he's not even, I don't even think he's participating over there.
No, he's not there.
Yeah, he's not even there. He wants that contract. He says, listen, I want the contract or trade me away. So a lot of dudes, man. This is the time of the year where, people that didn't get their money during the free agency period, they want theirs. They want their dues. And a lot of these guys, I can't blame them. These guys have been huge contributors for their team. They've either been franchise tag, or they just haven't really gotten, or they just believe that, they maybe got a contract, but believe that they need a little bit more money for that. It's that time of the year where, for the most part, we'll see what happens for the most part. But it's just that time of the year where you have fans that they're going to get involved, and they'll say that, oh, well, if he doesn't want to be a part of the team, cut him, or no, you pay him. It is what it is as far as our hopes. But Kari, man, give your thoughts about some of this mini camp chatter that's been going around the league so far.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. The one situation there's 2 situations that really stick out to me. One that I wanted to touch base on first, though, is the Deebo Samuel situation in San Francisco. I'm happy that he is showing up, because it just looks great. It looks way better on you as the player. Like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna abide by the rule. I'm gonna work my tail off, show you guys why I am worth this contract, and hopefully that'll just make things easier. For them to continue their dialogue, because, that was something that really stood out, that Kyle Shanahan had said last week, was the fact that, things didn't look good. Deebo was upset with the organization, but he never believed it was to a point where it wasn't repairable and wasn't fixable. So, that's definitely something encouraging. And, especially for 49er fans who, they know how important Deebo Samuel is. They understand, obviously he's a dual threat player. And obviously he mentioned that was something he wants to tone down a little bit to be able to extend his career, so he can actually see the worth of the contract he's going to be handed soon. So I'm happy for him, and I think he's going about it the right way. I'm glad that Kyler Murray's doing the same. I'm glad that Lamar Jackson's doing the same. One situation, it's hard not to discuss it, because it's been the elephant in the room in the NFL for almost a year and a half at this point. But it's really just been amplified, especially with him speaking for the first time publicly today in nearly 3 months. Deshaun Watson in Cleveland. I think the Browns, they just have. I mean, and they're doubling down too, because I saw a report today that said, obviously there's more allegations that have come out.
Oh yeah, more is coming.
More is coming. But they said they're willing to just keep fighting it out and keep rolling with the punches essentially, and more power to them for doing that and sticking to their guns. But things look so murky. Like obviously we're all assuming Deshaun Watson gets suspended for this season, let alone who knows if he'll ever play football ever again. But the fact that you put Baker Mayfield into such a unique situation now, the fact that they were able to agree on, hey, we're going to part ways, you don't have to report for minicamp, it's fine, we won't fine you. I'm glad that they did that for him, but like they've also backed themselves into a corner because and it would have been a tough thing to ask anyways, like, hey, Deshaun's suspended now, sorry, we still love you, like, would you like to play for us still? Like, I don't know if Baker would have done that. I really don't. I honestly, in my heart of hearts, believe he probably wouldn't have. He probably would have turned his back on the Browns if they had asked him to do that. But that's the problem, is like the Browns have backed themselves into a corner. Again, no offense to Jacoby Brissett. He's been an established backup player, for some time now. But that's the thing. He's a backup level player. He got his chances in Indy. He got a little bit of time to show his stuff in New England. Even last year in Miami, he had some time when Tua was dealing with injuries. So, but again, like I said, like he's a backup for a reason. He's not Deshaun Watson. He's not Baker Mayfield. So the Browns are just, I mean, I don't know. It's just insane to me how well. And it's honestly funny that this quote came from this specific person because he kind of added to it. Urban Meyer, before, when he was still a college football analyst, he was really big on, oh man, like, some of these teams, it makes sense why they're always so bad. Washington, all that they've had, with their franchise on and off the field, it makes sense why Terry McLaurin is sticking to his guns, like, hey, I'm not coming back until y'all pay me, or sayonara. Same with the Browns. The fact that they finally get a franchise quarterback, finally get a quarterback who's when playing top 5, top 10ish, finally have all their ducks in a row with that. And of course, it comes with him also having, they did that also with him having all these allegations and more coming out now. It just, some franchises just show themselves over time, and they show that who they really are, and why they've been where they've been, historically. So, again, bad teams will do things to show why they're bad teams, and I think the proof is really in the pudding with that now.
Yeah, man, and it's just it's like the Cleveland Browns. I mean, it just goes to show you, man, that as soon as they take a step forward as far as the organization, they just take 2 steps backwards every single time with this organization, man. And it's just, that was kind of one of the biggest risks about getting Deshaun Watson, is that that's a guy that's still dealing with civil suits. And I think back then, I mean, he dealt with a lot, but we all knew, I mean, everyone knew that, or it was projected from a lot of these, from Ian Rappaport, that more civil suits were going to be on the way. That was his case that he was working on back then when he got signed. Those were not the only cases that were not going to be finished. And even then, I mean, these cases might not be finished until 2 to 3 years down the line. So, and more are coming. I mean, he can deal with this for a very, very, very long time. Now, he's not going to get arrested or anything like that. There hasn't been any, charges as far as his manner goes. But as far as the reputation of the league and the reputation of the organization, the Cleveland Browns, the league's not going to they don't play with that. Mm-mm. The league will shut you. The league will literally shut you down if there's any threat to the integrity of their integrity of the league, integrity of the corporation. So I think overall wise, it's a bad situation for Cleveland, because now you just paid Deshaun Watson, I think around like what, 60 million, at least 60 million guaranteed dollars.
Yeah, 63, I want to say it was.
Yeah, you paid him around at least 60 million. guaranteed dollars, and you paid him around $150 million contract. I mean, that's a big cap hit. And again, that you're gonna have to pay him that money. You can't get out that contract. You can't get out of it. So, you have to deal with that, whether if he gets suspended or not. Then you have Baker Mayfield, who let's be honest. I mean, they handled the Baker Mayfield, I think, situation wrong, in my personal opinion. Terribly, because whether like it or not, that was the guy, that was your franchise quarterback. That was a quarterback that was dealing with the torn labrum on his throwing shoulder. So, and they decided they want to part ways. Okay, that's fine. Well, okay, it is what it is. I respect you guys. Thank you so much for drafting me and treating me like one of your own. Now, hopefully you can find me a team that can deal with me. And no one wanted to get him because of his, his personal issues, some of his antics. A lot of teams didn't really want to deal with that. So now you're in a situation where no team wants Baker Mayfield. He's demanding that the Browns cut him, and the Browns can't cut him because of the cap situation when it comes to there. So you have a quarterback now and then it's just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse with Baker Mayfield and the Browns, and as far as their relationship goes. So now you're dealing with a situation where he doesn't want to be there. Deshaun Watson is a quarterback that most likely won't even play. Like, best case scenario, he gets suspended for like 5 or 6 games. Worst case scenario, he gets suspended for the season, or potentially never plays in the league again. And now your best option now is Jacoby Brissett, but you're dealing with a cap situation that can hinder you for the next 3 to 4 years, and it's nothing you can really do about it. So the Browns have handled this and just handled it poorly. As far as Deshaun Watson goes, it's sad. It's a really sad situation because you have a quarterback that has, that I think if he plays, that's easily, in my opinion, a top 5 quarterback in this league. And the fact that he has to deal with all these allegations, all these things, it just sucks. It really sucks because you just couldn't really. And I'm not gonna sit up here and say he did it, because at the end of the day, like, these are silver suits, these are allegations. But whether it's true or not, I mean, he put himself in the situation. Sadly, he put himself in that situation. And whether if it's true or not, I mean, you gotta learn how to try to conduct your business a little bit better, so that you won't be in this type of situation. So it sucks for him. It sucks for his, sucks for his family, sucks for his career, honestly. But it is what it is. And as far as the Browns organization, I have no sympathy for the Browns, because you knew exactly what you were getting yourself into. You knew the risk. But again, they stuck with their guns, like you said before. But not, just because you stuck with your guns doesn't mean that you always make the right decision. And now we could be dealing with this situation where it's not Baker Mayfield, it's not Deshaun Watson, but it's Jacoby Brissett starting for week 1. And, you're talking about a Browns team that's competing in the AFC North division with Pittsburgh, with Baltimore, with Cincinnati. I mean, Cincinnati made it to the Super Bowl. Baltimore is always a championship contender. Pittsburgh has one of the nastiest. They have one of the more talented rosters and one of the nastiest defenses in the NFL. And Jacoby Brissett might be your starting quarterback. That's just not a good situation overall to deal with.
Yeah, agreed. They've made their bed. They said they're going to lay in it. Okay, we'll see. I think the thing that is most, like, the biggest turnoff about it all too is, like, the Browns, like, stood on, hey, we did our due diligence. We were comfortable with it. We searched all these things, and then all these other things are coming out now. It's like, did you guys know this? Like, did you anticipate this stuff coming out? Like, did you say that you searched just to acquiesce, or did you really truly, do your due diligence? Again, that's something that remains to be seen. I guess we'll find out soon, but I don't know. It's very unfortunate for everybody involved. It really is just very unfortunate. So, but let's not end on a bad note with that. I do want to ask you quick before we go. I mentioned them earlier, 2 quarterbacks who are reporting to camp now, and, are guys that, have contract discussions have been, heavily involved, have been heavily discussed around these 2 guys. So Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson, just, if you had to pick and choose, which player would you choose to, pay first, and just your reasoning why?
I'll give it to Lamar Jackson only because his role that he's playing with Baltimore. I mean, if Lamar Jackson was in Arizona, and I think if Kyler Murray was in Baltimore, and they kind of had him play the Lamar Jackson role, I think I would kind of I would kind of switch it around and pay Kyler. It's just the role that Lamar plays in Baltimore. It's so impactful, I think, more than Kyler, because for the most part, Kyler's not that involved in the running attack. Like he's, again, he creates a lot of his own plays, especially a lot of those situations in the run. But Lamar Jackson, they have designed runs for him. He's their best running back. He's their best overall player. He's the distributor. He's the guy that has to be the main running back, because even though they're literally 4 to 5 running backs deep, they still use Lamar Jackson heavily in that role. They use him so much, very similar to how Deebo Samuel is kind of used, where you can use him in a multitude of ways, that it just increases his value compared to what Kyler Murray has to deal with in Arizona. And if you take Lamar, and plus, again, you didn't help him out with any of his weapons.
No.
Who was he throwing the football to? I mean, Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews is arguably the best tight end right now in football, but he has no one else to throw to right now. You traded his best weapon away in Marquise Hollywood Brown. Now, granted, Baltimore drafted extremely well in the NFL draft, and you drafted 2 other really good tight ends that can also be some really good depth pieces, but you have, you can't be running 12, 13 personnel forever. I mean, you're gonna have to eventually distribute the football to these receivers, and it can't just be on the intermediate throws. And if you look at Lamar Jackson's history of receivers that he's really worked with, the only 1,000-yard receiver he's had to work with was Marquise Brown. Everyone else has just been 400, 500-yard receivers, and that just can't really be the case there. So you're not really helping him out to, in a position where Lamar Jackson can take his game to the next level. Because I don't think he has, as far as throwing ability, I don't think he has the arm strength or maybe the arm talent that Josh Allen that Josh Allen has. But Lamar Jackson has other abilities, other strengths that no one else in the league can play. And he's been getting better and better and better every single year with his throwing ability. But you're only hindering his development. You're only increasing it a little bit. You're hindering it if you can't get him a true number 1 receiver.
Yeah.
Everyone talks bad about Lamar Jackson, his ability not to throw the football. Well, who has he had to throw the football to besides Mark Andrews and those tight ends? It's been nobody. So Baltimore, I think they need to pay him only because the role that he plays in, no one else is gonna play in it. No one else can do it straight. Even if you bring back prime Joe Flacco, or even if you put some of the other top quarterbacks in the position that Lamar Jackson's in Baltimore, I don't know if they'll succeed as much because they just don't have the weapons. I mean, only few quarterbacks, guys like Aaron Rodgers, guys like Tom Brady, get to work with receivers that are not really well known, but can make the most out of it. We've seen Tom Brady's been doing it for decades with the Patriots. We've seen Aaron Rodgers do it with the Green Bay Packers. Besides those 2 quarterbacks, I can't think of a name that's had to deal with little to no weapons at all and turn those weapons into valuable assets. I can't do it because Peyton Manning had Marvin Harrison, he had Reggie Wayne. For the most part, Andrew Luck had T.Y. Hilton. It's just, we can go on with the names. I mean, Matt Ryan had Julio Jones for almost a decade. Calvin Ridley. Some of the top quarterback, Russell Wilson, for the most part, had Jermaine Kearse. He had Tyler Lockett, Doug Baldwin. Every top quarterback has always had a true number 1 receiver or number 2 or true number 1, or at least 2 or 3 receivers that can be huge contributors. Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers are probably the only ones, and maybe not even Aaron Rodgers because he had Greg Jennings and Donald Driver and Jordy Nelson for all those years. But Tom Brady literally had no one to throw the football to, and he made those guys into valuable commodities. So Lamar Jackson has had to deal with all of that pressure, and yet that's a guy that led the league in touchdown passes, a former MVP, a guy that's been to the playoffs almost every year, starting except for last year, and a majority of the reason why because he was hurt last year. With a lot of action. But the role that they gave him, very similar to what Deebo Samuel has to do with San Francisco, it's way bigger than what Kyler Murray has had to deal with. Kyler Murray has had number 1 options in DeAndre Hopkins. Lamar Jackson has not had that number 1 option besides Mark Andrews from the tight end position. And even then, you're starting to see a lot more defenses really start to get Mark Andrews a lot more attention, only going to make Lamar Jackson's job a lot harder. Yes, they can run the football, but we all know the older Lamar Jackson gets, you don't want it to be like a Cam Newton situation where all of a sudden, by the time he's 30, 31 years of age, he can't even throw the football. Like that's still supposed to be that's supposed to be when a quarterback is entering their prime.
Right.
And for Cam Newton, that's his career because of the amount of the amount of hits that he had to sustain for all those years. You don't want the same thing happening to Lamar Jackson. You want him to get to a point where he's in his late 20s, early 30s. He has number one options. He can run the football if he wants to, but you don't want to use him as that number one running option like they did over the last 2 to 3 years over there. So, in my opinion, he deserves the money. He deserves the max contract. I would say more so for Kyler. Kyler hasn't even made the playoffs. He hasn't even made the playoffs for me. So he needs to prove that he deserves that money. But Arizona's also in a tough situation where, he is a really good quarterback. And, how many, what's the outlook for 2023 or 2024 going to look like? You don't want to really take that gamble. So it's a tough situation. But if I had to really choose, I'll definitely go Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of different thoughts about it all. Lamar, to me, is probably he's the most over-evaluated quarterback I think we've ever seen. Like you mentioned, who are the weapons he's throwing to? I personally am excited to see Rashad Bateman this year.
Yeah.
I do think he's a good player, but he's got to prove it. He's got to prove that he can stay healthy. He's got to prove that he can be a number one option. Like you said, even Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown is a good receiver. He's a good NFL receiver. He's not DeAndre Hopkins. He's not Antonio Brown in his prime. His cousin, obviously. He's not
Diggs.
Right. Diggs. He's not Mike Evans. He's not Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. He's not any of those guys. So let's hold the brakes on, I not you, but people outside that are just so adamant about Lamar. He's just not a passer. Is he going to be it's easier to pass the ball when you got weapons to throw to. That's one thing. And I'm going to get to this point a little bit later because I think this is something that hurts both Kyler and Lamar. Is I feel like both of those guys playing offenses that hold them back. But I'll get to that later on. But just talking about with Kyler too, I love Kyler. I'm a huge fan of his. I love Lamar as well. Lamar, I've been a huge fan of his since Louisville. Kyler, I was a big fan of his at Oklahoma. And I think with him, whereas Lamar has had such a profound effect, the team is so built around him. Just his leadership, the way he carries himself, the way the guys respond to him. Whereas Kyler, I think is really, truly, it's been a step each year. He's taken a step, he's shown some growth and improvement. But I think with him, he's such a different personality, and he's a guy that, let's face it, he's 5'10". He's a 5'10", 205-pound quarterback. He's a little guy. And, it's something that I think the Cardinals are even still getting adjusted to themselves. And granted, he has a coach in Cliff Kingsbury that is 100% bought into him, obviously. But at the same time, too, I think with Kyler, you have to manipulate things a little bit more. With Lamar, again, like you mentioned, this is crazy. This is a crazy stat. Lamar he's led the team in passing, the last 3 seasons, but he's led the team in passing and rushing the last 3 seasons. That's not yes, that shows how great of a player Lamar is, but you don't want that to be the trend. You really don't. And that's something telling too, because Lamar's numbers have actually dipped each of the last 3 years. So clearly it's taking a toll on him. So I hope that's something that's amended. But yeah, Kyler, you do have to build things a little bit. You do have to adjust a little bit more to things around him because he's a smaller guy. He has all the physical gifts. I mean, he's, if he's not as fast as Lamar Jackson, he's just a notch below him. But, he's got a rocket arm. And he showed that he can, make plays from the pocket, but he just has to do it more consistently. I think both those guys' consistency is the big deal, but I think even more so with Kyler, because we've seen it the last 2 years specifically where great starts, great first half to the seasons, and then the second half, they plummeted a little bit. He got injured both of those seasons too. He's just, again, a smaller guy. You want to make sure he's staying healthy and that you're keeping him upright. But, I think that's a great point too that you mentioned about the weapons, because Lamar Jackson, yeah, Mark Andrews, okay, Hollywood Brown, all right, but Kyler Murray's had DeAndre Hopkins, Rondell Moore, AJ Green, Zach Ertz now. I mean, he had James Conner and Chase Edmonds coming out of the backfield. He had, even though he was a little older, Larry Fitz was teaching him the ropes his rookie year, So, he's had guys. He has had guys. He's had legitimate weapons. But again, I do think the bigger issue with both guys is the fact that they play in offenses that kind of like they placate to their strengths, but I don't think they necessarily help them grow on their weaknesses, unfortunately. So, but yeah, again, I would also pay Lamar too. He just is so valuable. But the weird thing is, it seems like the Ravens want to pay him, but he's not necessarily meeting them on it because he is representing himself, him and his mother. So I don't know. I do think that it's going to get worked out. It will get worked out. Lamar Jackson, whether he gets paid by Baltimore or someone else, he will be one of the highest paid players the NFL's ever seen. It's just going to be a matter of when, not if.
Yeah, and real quick before we get out of here, I've always been a proponent that if a quarterback proves to you in year 1 or year 2 that they can be that franchise guy, pay him. Like, get it over with before, because all of a sudden we get to year 4, we get to year 5, and all of a sudden the quarterback market continues to just get reset over and over and over again. You're only going to make it harder on yourself. I mean, that's why we give Brandon Beane a lot of credit, because we said that we got to year 3. When we got to year 3, I mean, Josh Allen got paid. I mean, he got paid like right off the gate then, because we knew Josh Allen was, the year that he had in 2020 was literally MVP worthy. He was MVP worthy in 2020, and we all knew that. Okay, yeah, Josh Allen's officially arrived. That this is going to be our franchise guy. Pay that dude now. All the league, Nick, especially notoriously Nick Wright, kept saying that it's ridiculous because Josh Allen's only had one good year. But we knew that if Josh Allen continued to even get better, if he continued to progress, the market was going to reset, and it was going to be a lot harder to pay Josh Allen what he's worth now. People thought Josh Allen's contract was crazy when he got paid back in 2020. Now, all of a sudden, we fast forward to 2 years later, and all of a sudden, everyone's saying that Josh Allen's contract was a steal because, and it is a steal because he is arguably a top 5, top 3 quarterback in the league right now. And he might, and by the time we get to 2 years later, he might even get top 5, top 3 money. And it is the way it is. And when you look at Lamar Jackson and I guarantee you his mom is definitely going to make this argument. Look at my son's accomplishments compared to these other quarterbacks that are getting paid. My son's accolades, triumphs over all of them. So, Lamar's mom does not play. Like I said, baby's going to get paid. Lamar Jackson, he's going to want to get paid. And the question is how much money does he want to get, right? Does he want that Dak Prescott realm? Is he going to be in that Josh Allen realm? Or is he going to be a quarterback that could potentially that wants to reset the entire market? And can Baltimore even afford it? Because they have other players that they want to pay. Like a lot of other dudes' contracts are coming up. Guys that drafted well and progressed for them well, but they're, can they even afford to even get a Lamar Jackson contract that is worth maybe resetting the market? So I don't know. It's like I don't know if Lamar Jackson is going to be a guy that's going to get that type of money. I don't think, I think they are going to pay him top 10 worthy money. I think Lamar Jackson wants to be top 5 or to get or maybe get at least top 2, or maybe the best as far as resetting the market goes and stuff like that. But it's going to be interesting. I think Kyler Murray, he's already expressed he wants to change the market. So it's interesting. I mean, it is what it is. Again, I am never ever going to take away the fact that players want to get what they feel is what they feel they're worth. Players have worked hard to try to get the contract they are worth for. But not everyone's Tom Brady. Not everyone's gonna. Not everyone has a $300 million wife that they can just automatically afford to take pay cuts and get barely anything. And again, it helps out the team, but not everyone's Tom Brady. So we'll see what happens. Definitely during that matter. But before we kind of close up shop here, man, I want to thank everyone so much for stopping by the Fambase Sports YouTube channel. If you guys are watching us from Facebook and Twitter, thank you guys so much for checking us out. We really, really appreciate it. But before we get out of here, guys, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to Fambase Sports. Really helps out the algorithm and it gets more people to it draws more attention for us, to try to get more people involved in our community, because like I said, we're not the only ones in Fambase Sports. There's a lot more other content creators that are on here that are incredible. And like I said before, guys, we got a big contract that are involving all of us. So we are excited to kind of announce that. Should be either announced today or sometime later on. But obviously, we've all been involved with it. It's gonna be incredible. And honestly, I can't wait for it. But yeah, Kyrie, man, your last thoughts before we hop out of here.
Yeah, man. Well, first and foremost, like you said, shout out to everybody following along right there or on the streams. That's my @ name there, @Riri_Demos. Twitter, Instagram, connect me on Facebook. I'm always sharing content there, whether it's, with Buffalo Fanatics. I do have a couple things cooking up. I can't really speak on them right now, but I will share with you guys very soon. But please stay connected with us on socials, Twitter, Instagram. I'm, hoping to be starting a YouTube page soon as well. So, but yeah, definitely very thankful for you all tuning in out there. The one last comment I did want to add about, our Lamar, Kyler Murray discussion is, like I'm glad you mentioned Tom Brady. It is great to be able to make that money, but at the same time too, live in glory forever, take a little bit less, and go the Tom Brady route. That I just think that's something I would suggest. Just look at Stephon Diggs. He didn't reset the receiver market. That's how you help be able to get a guy like Von Miller into the building. So, but again, I thank you guys. Jarek, you always hold it down. Thank you and appreciate you. And thank you guys for tuning in. We definitely want to continue to build this. Fambase has been a great platform for us. So just, we're just going to keep shooting for the moon.
Yeah, guys. So yeah, guys, my name is Jared Call, Kari Damos, my co-host. Again, always, balling as usual. We're getting better. We're definitely getting a lot better. We're definitely going to try to expand our community. And like I said before, guys, if you guys are coming from the Jan Sports YouTube channel and coming to Fambase Sports, thank you guys so much for all the love and support. Like I said, we have more shows coming on the way, so definitely check out Fambase Sports if you want more NFL content, more sports content in general, especially if you are a Bills fan. This is definitely the channel that you want to try to get into. And again, if you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, or whatever social media and podcast, podcast platform you're watching or listening from, we really appreciate all your feedback. But anyway, guys, check us out. Fambase Sports, Tuesdays, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard, 6 o'clock Central Time, and 4 o'clock if you are watching from the West Coast or wherever you're watching from. I mean, we've gotten literally people watching from across the world, from Thailand even. So we really appreciate all the people across the world that are watching this. But anyway, guys, we are out. Fambase Sports. We'll catch you next time on Tuesday, 7 o'clock p.m.
Peace.